Whenever you encounter greatness, what is your response? Say that you're watching television, one of your favorite basketball teams is playing, and that star player from your team makes a layup at the very last moment. It's a buzzer beater, and it wins the game. What is your response? Or maybe if you're listening to someone playing a choral piece, that there's a choir singing together, and they reach a harmony that just moves your heart. What do you do? Or perhaps you're listening to a great speech that you hear someone speaking about a topic that it is evident that they love, and you walk away. Are you unchanged by what you've seen? And that, in fact, is something that we have to understand, because in our life, whenever we encounter greatness, there is a response, and we have changed in some way. Maybe we want to be like them. Maybe we want to practice just a little bit more so we can emulate what we have seen. Or maybe we just have an appreciation. We don't walk away unchanged. Life goes on a different course after that moment. And in today's gospel, we are encountering the ascension of the Lord, that his disciples, he's reminding them of all that he has done. He's giving them some final instruction. And notice this very potent line. You are witnesses of these things. Have you ever thought about that word witness? What does it mean? We might think of it in terms of having seen or having heard of something. Maybe it's great or maybe it's utterly terrible. And maybe if it's the gospel, it's something that seems to be a mix of those. But that isn't enough. Because if we define it as just having seen something or having heard of something, that's not the entirety of the story. How would we know someone's seen something great? How would we know that they have heard of something? So that's the second necessary part, that someone has to testify to what they have seen. Because if Jesus is speaking to his disciples in the gospel, and he is reminding them that you're witnesses of these things, he's not just saying you've seen some pretty great things. That's obvious. He's telling them, now's the time to go forward and testify. But are we so moved by the Gospels? Think about what we've seen and what we've heard. This magnificent story all the way through salvation history about how the Son of God became incarnate, condescended, humbled himself to walk in our flesh. That he, on that nativity, was made one of us, and he walked the earth. And then as he was walking the earth, he went about doing good, as the scriptures told us, that he was going around teaching a great many things, encouraging others to conversion, challenging them, changing their life. And if that wasn't enough, giving a few miracles along the way so that others might believe. And then perhaps the most majestic marvel of them all, that he suffered, he died, and he rose again out of love for us, so that he could open the gates of heaven to all who believe and are moved by their life of faith, so that all could enter the kingdom of heaven. And then this moment, where he ascends into heaven to remind his disciples, this is not where you're called to be. You're meant to follow me, to go up to the place where I have ascended, so that you can be with me and be with your heart's desire forever. What do these things mean to us? Yes, that we have redemption, that we can be justified through Jesus Christ, that we have all of these great graces that are afforded to us. But secondly, and perhaps something a little closer to our heart, that we're loved. We're loved so much that your Lord gives over his body and pours out his blood so that you could possibly enter the kingdom of heaven. These are the things that we have seen. These are the things that we have heard. But are we testifying to them? Are we letting this greatness change our life? There are a few different options whenever it comes to what we have seen. First, one of the most insidious options, we could remain indifferent to what we have seen. But yeah, sure, we've seen and heard some pretty great stories and some great tales, but at the end of the day, what does it matter? We kind of go on about our usual business. And that's the sin of indifference. That the Lord indeed has done great things, but he has also challenged us and encouraged us on so that we live the life of faith well. He doesn't want us living in indifference, as if the things that we have heard and seen are too great to be believed. Or there's another option, perhaps to distort what we have heard just slightly, or even to be distressed or to be discouraged in following them. That yes, we've heard and seen these great things, but at the end of the day, we start to say, well, it's a little bit inconvenient. I've got this sports schedule, for example, and so I need to follow these things. So I kind of distort it and change it so that I can live it in the way that I see fit, and not in the total self-gift that the Lord is requiring from us. So that's another possibility. Just following when it's convenient or whenever others are watching. But at the end of the day, not being truly convinced or not being truly converted. Or then there's the final option, to actually be changed by what we have seen. Because we are being challenged to be witnesses to these things. And so what does that look like exactly, especially as we enter into this last week of Easter? Perhaps there's a few different things for us to consider, a few different things that can make this a little bit more concrete. Where's that person in your life that is completely devoid of hope at this moment? That it seems like life has been coming in on them and it seems that they're all but crushed by everything that's going on. Do you dare to go and speak a word of hope to them? That's one of the things faith challenges us to do. And if our life is truly changed by what we have seen, maybe we could do that. Or maybe whenever we hear about the Lord's mercy, that we don't believe it's just for somebody else, whether we're too good for God's mercy or too bad for God's mercy. Maybe instead we approach with hearts of faith and trust, and we actually ask the Lord for that mercy, that we just spend a few minutes a day, 5 minutes at most, just asking the Lord for the gift of that mercy and the gift to believe in that mercy. Or we could move on. That maybe whenever it comes to living out a life of faith, we're just not that convinced or we don't know quite where to turn whenever we've heard to read the scriptures, to pray, and to enter in. Or maybe it comes to sin, that there's that one sin that's always kind of hanging on your mind, that one thing that we should get rid of, but we just have kind of excused ourselves. And we don't realize it's dulling our life of faith. Maybe it's time to conquer that thing as Jesus has encouraged us to do. Or maybe during this year of the Pilgrims of Hope, this Jubilee year, actually living out of that hope. Not being a people that are distressed or discouraged and walking around as if we have no hope. Our hope is Jesus Christ. We have encountered that. We've received Him. Why don't we change by that hope? And if we don't feel like we're quite there yet, ask God for the grace to be changed by that hope. Or at the very least, the final option, instead of just hearing about all these things, believing them, instead of just hearing Scripture and hearing all of these profound stories, actually believing them and living as if it makes a difference in our life. Because we weren't just given this storybook to read as if it was just another book of fiction. We were given this book to change the very course of our life and our eternal destination. And that, in fact, is why the Lord reminds us we are witnesses of these things. Not just witnesses who have seen something, not just witnesses who have heard a word that tickled our ears for a moment, but ultimately fell away empty. But witnesses who have seen something of greatness, who have heard something tremendous and almost unbelievable, and want to go and testify by the way that we live our life differently than everyone else, and by the way that we speak the gospel boldly and without apology. Because, my brothers and sisters, we too are witnesses of these things. And on this Feast of the Ascension, we have seen greatness. How are we going to let that change our life?